Hello, welcome back to my channel. I feel like this is going to be a very real deep video, but I wanted to share my fear of childbirth with you because I've been absolutely terrified of childbirth since I was like 7 years old. And I want to talk about that fear with you and what my birth choices are. I don't have a birth plan in place right now because I'm only 19 weeks pregnant. Well, 20 weeks nearly by the time you're watching this video. So I'm nearly halfway through my pregnancy, and my midwife in my last appointment said that I would do the birth plan, or we'd go over the birth plan together a little closer to the actual due date, if that makes sense. So I guess we should just get straight into the video. So my first experience of childbirth was when I was 7 years old. I witnessed somebody going into labour and I was absolutely traumatised because it wasn't a very good birth. But this person went into labour and they were sat on the toilet and there was stuff coming out of every hole possible. I was 7 years old, I was seeing this and I was absolutely traumatised. What didn't help was that before this day, and I can't remember how close it was because we're talking over 20 years ago now, but there was a situation between me and this person and they told me that if anything happened to the baby, it was going to be my fault. I was going to be to blame. So on this day at 7 years old, I'm a 7-year-old child. I'm seeing stuff coming out of somebody in every hole possible. I know they're going into labour. Like I know it's to do with the baby coming. And all I'm thinking is, this is my fault. Something's going wrong and I did this. And I was crying my eyes out. I was crying my little heart out. I ran down the stairs into somebody's arms. And I think, if I remember rightly, I said, this was my fault. I did this, or something along those lines. Obviously now I know, looking back, that it wasn't my fault, but it did scare me. And then somebody else in my family told me, and even recently they've told me the same, that this person was actually hemorrhaging. Her body was shutting down, she was dying, the baby was dying. But when I explained this to my midwife, she kind of frowned and was like, no, that's not true. People can vomit during childbirth, people can have diarrhea during childbirth, even bleed. It doesn't mean their body was shutting down and they were dying. So I don't know why the person in my family told me that's what happened, and maybe something else happened at the hospital, but that moment that I saw wasn't what was explained to me, so I don't think that really helped. But anyway, moving on from that. So when I was in my last year of primary school, so I was 10 years old, we were doing sex education. I don't know if anyone remembers sex education, but ours was videos. There was a video about puberty. There was a video about periods, sex. It was like an animated video with a cat outside the house window. I remember that as clear as day. And there was a video of somebody giving birth, and it was just this baby's head blue coming out of the woman's vagina. You literally saw it coming out of the vagina. Can you imagine being 10 years old seeing that? I don't know if I would want my 10-year-old child to actually see that. I know we need to tell them, but do we need to show them a baby's head coming out of a vagina? I think that's a little bit horrific. But anyway, so when I was in secondary school, from the age of 11 and then all through my teenage years, I never actually told anybody this, but I used to tell myself, and this is going to sound dramatic, but I used to tell myself that if I couldn't have a C-section, that I would abort my baby. I would have an abortion. That's how bad my fear of childbirth was, that I was willing to abort my baby if I couldn't have a C-section. I wanted to have a C-section, I wanted surgery. Then when I had my first serious relationship, I was 18 years old. I'd say a couple years into the relationship, so I was 20, 21, and I kind of reconsidered my decision in that I wouldn't abort the baby. I think at that point I was like, wow, I was a little bit dramatic. But if I couldn't have a C-section, I was set on having an epidural. And very early on into the labour, if anything was to go wrong, I didn't want to feel it going wrong. I didn't want to feel anything at all. But I was still set on a C-section first. So now fast forward to the present. I'm 19 weeks pregnant. I'll be nearly 20 weeks at the time that you watch this video. So I'm nearly halfway through my pregnancy. Me and my current partner, James, have been together 7 years, if you don't know. And we were trying to get pregnant for 4-ish years, but we ended up having to turn to IVF. We were very, very lucky in that our first round of IVF was successful. It's his sperm, my egg, so biologically his child and biologically my child. But we just needed science to help us. And I responded better to the medication than what was expected. And we ended up conceiving our first round of IVF. We actually have 3 frozen embryos and they'll be stored at the fertility clinic for 3 years, and that's covered by the NHS. We are having a baby girl. We already know we're having a little girl, which was what I was hoping for. There is a gender reveal on my channel, but even when we were trying for a baby, I had always said from the very beginning that I was going to go for a C-section, and my partner James has always been very supportive of that decision. He just feels that I'm the one birthing the child and that I should have the right to choose how I birth my child, and he would support that decision no matter what the decision is. Now that we're actually pregnant and that we are actually having a baby, I went into my first midwife appointment and I straight up said, I want to request a planned C-section. How do I do that? She asked me my reasons behind it, and that was when I spoke about what I had witnessed as a 7-year-old child and what my thoughts were through my teenage years. And it's also because I'm diagnosed with OCD. I'm also on the waiting list for an ADHD assessment. I think I'm halfway through the waiting time. So I've still got another half to go, which is like 1.5 years until I have my assessment, hopefully. But it's more about the OCD diagnosis. I live by plans, routine, details, and I just am massively organised. So I actually have a notebook in the drawer in our living room, and I have had that notebook since before we started trying for a baby, or around when we started trying for a baby. So we're talking 4 years. And this is pages and pages of YouTube video ideas, from pregnancy announcement to our 2-year-old child. I've got pages of what to pack in my hospital suitcase, what to pack in baby's hospital suitcase, what milestones I would like our baby to achieve at certain ages. This was just because I used to work in childcare. I know babies develop at different stages. Don't go at me in the comments. I've got pages of like baby must-haves, baby essentials. I had a baby names list that I kept updating. And when I'm writing in my notebook, if I get like, let's say halfway down the page and I make a spelling mistake, I will rip the page out and rewrite the whole thing again. So that notebook is not literally the same notebook I've had for 4 years. I've probably had several notebooks and I've rewritten the pages over again and again. When we are going out for the weekend, if a friend said to us, oh, do you want to do such and such on Saturday? I will then work out what time I need to get ready, what time I need to leave, what we're going to do about our dog Poppy, because I'm funny about leaving her. I will work out whether we're going to have time to eat after or not. I will work out what time we need to be home to give the dog her dinner. I will stress about absolutely everything. I'll overthink it. I'll just want to plan everything about it. So for me, I think it's like the fear of the unknown, not knowing what day I'll be in labour, what time I'll be in labour. Will my waters break or will they need to be broken? What are the contractions actually going to feel like? Am I going to be able to cope with them or not? Am I going to have to be cut? I absolutely do not want an episiotomy unless I have to have an episiotomy. I think that's how you pronounce it. But will I need to be cut? Will they need to use forceps? Will the baby be breech and then have to have a C-section? I was actually breech. My mum spent her whole pregnancy worrying, being scared about the birth, and then ended up being asleep for an emergency C-section. She woke up like 2 hours later, and that was when she first held her baby. Baby was already dressed. She had no skin on skin. Other people had held me before she had, but she spent her whole pregnancy worrying about the childbirth. But I've had people say to me, like, there's no point worrying about it, you know, baby's got to come out one way or another, so there's no point thinking about it, it's gonna happen how it's gonna happen. But I can't think like that. That's not how my brain works. I can't just switch everything off, you know. I thought to myself, if I had a planned C-section, then I would know what day I'm going in, what time I'm going in. I know the exact step-by-step process. I know I'll probably be in the hospital for a couple of days because recovery is longer. I know it's a major surgery. I'm aware that they cut through loads of stuff and they move your organs around and jiggle it all back again. I know it's major surgery. I've had people say to me, like, do you even know how, like, serious the surgery is? Yes, I haven't just gone, hey, let's have a C-section without doing any research. I know the risks. I know how like serious the surgery is. I haven't taken that decision lightly, but I felt like it was the right decision for me. I had people trying to convince me not to do it, and I was just like, I'm not listening to you. It's my choice. My midwife said to me that we would have to wait until the 20-week scan, because sometimes a woman will go for a 20-week scan and they'll, for whatever reason, say, actually, you're going to have a C-section anyway. But if I went to the 20-week scan and there wasn't a medical reason why I needed a C-section, then I could request it, but I couldn't request it until I was like 30 weeks. And that actually panicked me, because I was like, well, that's quite close to the due date. What if it didn't get approved? And then I'm going to have a meltdown. I'm going to go into panic mode. I'd rather just be able to request it now, but I can't do that. But you can, in our hospital at least, I don't know if it's the same for all hospitals, but you are allowed to request a planned C-section now, but you have to have a meeting with fancy schmancy people to talk about your reasons, and they'll go over the risks, and I would assume probably try and change my mind, but it wouldn't work. So, guys, I say it wouldn't work. I have actually reconsidered my decision on a planned C-section. One of our friends who has a child already, she is very, very passionate about giving birth vaginally. She said it's the most empowering feeling in the world. She was so passionate that she sold me on it. She literally sold me on it. That's how passionate she was. She misses pregnancy, she misses childbirth. She actually said that if our IVF didn't work, she would be a surrogate. But she was just so passionate about birth that it just completely changed my mind. Anyone else I would just not listen to, but she was just, she was in the zone when she was talking about it. And I was like, wow, okay. So she actually discussed a midwife-led unit, which is still within the hospital. So in the midwife-led unit, which is where she gave birth, there were 6 rooms and 4 of them had labour pools. They encourage hypnobirthing, they encourage skin-on-skin after birth, they encourage delayed cord clamping, they encourage hypnobirthing, like breathing techniques. You can change the lighting, you can play music. When she was there giving birth, she was the only woman in there, so there was no other women there. But because you're within the hospital, if something goes wrong, or if you're like, I can't do this, I need an epidural, you literally go in a lift, up 1 floor, and then you're in the normal maternity ward at the hospital. She used the labour pool and she used the gas and air. I've done my research into this midwife-led unit, and it's within the hospital that we were going to birth in anyway. Forgot to say that. And what we can do is at around 31 weeks, we can book a tour. So we'll get shown around. We can then kind of give them the heads up of absolutely, this is where I want to birth. And then on the day that I go into labour, I would call them and say, I think I'm going into labour. I want to give birth here. So that's how that works. They will only take low risk pregnancies, and we are at a high chance of having preeclampsia. Our 20-week scan is in a couple weeks. It's on Monday, the 20th of January, which is actually my mum's birthday. And I think what would happen is about a week after the 20-week scan, once they've been able to look into it, if we do have preeclampsia, then they will call us and tell us that we have preeclampsia. I've been taking 150 milligrams of aspirin every evening since I was 14 weeks pregnant. I was supposed to start it at 12 weeks, but I was being funny about taking aspirin, so I started it a couple weeks late. But I started taking it at 14 weeks, and I've been taking it every evening ever since. It doesn't guarantee that I won't get preeclampsia. It's just supposed to help to reduce the chance of getting it. There's just no guarantee. If I don't have it, fabulous. Low risk pregnancy, great. If I do have preeclampsia, then I will be monitored more, but I wouldn't be a low risk pregnancy anymore. So it would be recommended that I don't give birth at the midwife-led unit, but it's only a recommendation. The reason for it is because you can get eclampsia, which is where you have a seizure during childbirth or after, and the midwife-led unit would not be able to deal with that. I would need to go up. But again, it's only one floor up. I feel like I would still go for the midwife-led unit anyway. Am I still scared of childbirth? Absolutely terrified of childbirth. I'm telling myself she's gonna come out how she's gonna come out. There's nothing I can do to control it, and just wing it, I guess. I'm still frightened of childbirth. Our friend did actually recommend a hypnobirthing course, an online hypnobirthing course from the Positive Birth Company. I'll link it in the description box below. I have not bought it yet. I think it's £30, but I am going to buy it when I next get paid, because I think I need to figure out like pain management techniques. I know there's such thing as a labour comb. I think I'm interested in doing that. I don't know whether breathing techniques will work for me. I'm not really a meditate-y kind of person, but who knows? Maybe in the moment it would work. But I do think it would be worth getting the online course. She highly recommended it. So yeah, so that is my fear of childbirth explained. Thank you for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!